Hello everyone, and welcome to How to Use a Crystal Ball for Divination and Meditation, a tutorial by Felix Warren, who is me. So first of all, I want to show you this. This is obviously the crystal ball and other crystal balls that we're going to be working with. But first, we need to talk about a couple of things. Important things to know. So, whenever you're looking for a crystal ball and you're wanting to purchase one, you're often going to find that searching for a crystal ball doesn't actually find you as much as you would think it would find you, and that's because they're often called crystal spheres or gem spheres, rock spheres, whatever, but they're usually called spheres in the world where they're sold quite often. So whenever you're searching for them, just keep that in mind. Also, sometimes it's really awkward to say the word balls, so you can say spheres at those times instead. Now, these techniques that I'm going to be teaching you are able to be used with other tools. They're pretty flexible, so if you've got any kind of similar tools to the crystal balls here that I'm going to be showing you how to work with, go ahead and try applying the same techniques and see what happens. The great thing about divination is that nothing explodes. It's not like, chemistry or something. So, there's going to be trance involved in crystal gazing. And I'm putting here that you need to prepare for trance. I'm going to talk about that further on whenever I talk about the process of scrying, but I just want to note that because you're going to be going into trance, whether lightly or deeply, you need to make sure that you're in a safe environment to be trancing out in. Block out all of your appointments, lock your door, make sure that if you have a pet around, it's going to be okay if they interrupt you, just things like that. So do some preparation to make sure that you've got the attention and time for this and the focus for it, because otherwise it's not going to work very well. Most of all, use a stand. They don't always come with a stand, so sometimes you might be kind of bereft for what is it that I actually do here with this spherical object that I cannot set on any flat surface. And the answer is you make do with what you have. I suggest, see this center thing here? That's actually a candle holder. It's a votive holder, or a tea light holder. Votive and tea light holders, you can usually get them for $5 or $10. I think I got that one for $5 on sale at Fred Meyer. And the thing over here, actually, that is a little crystal donut for beading and gem crafting. So that I repurposed into being a crystal ball holder. And yeah, like this over here, this is an actual crystal ball holder that I got at a thrift shop, actually, so probably way cheaper than I would have gotten it at a rock shop or a pagan and new age shop. The most expensive place to get any of this is going to be a pagan and new age shop, and I don't begrudge them their pricing, but there are definitely more affordable places to get a crystal ball stand. So that's a good look at some of the things you need to be prepared for. Now, let's talk about the process of scrying. Now, as I said earlier, you're going to need to prepare for trance. Make a space for this. If there is something that helps you trance out, such as incense, lighting candles, playing certain music, then do that. If there are things that make it very difficult for you to trance out, then either eliminate those things or schedule things so that they don't happen or aren't around. You're going to need to prepare this space for you to be relaxed and for your mind to just kind of like wander wherever the heck it goes and not feel like it really has to do any one thing and not feel pressured or anxious. So just make that physical and mental space. Now, it would be preferable if you choose a subject to scry on. You can just scry into the crystal and see what happens. there's going to be plenty that you'll see. The problem is that there's so many things that you could be seeing, or so many things that your senses could be picking up, that it may be difficult for you to discern whether or not you're actually getting input from the crystal, or you're just getting like random impressions on your imagination or random flashes of thought. So try to think in a specific direction, and then you'll find that you get a lot of details that way. Otherwise, it's going to be like, you know, random channel flipping through the TV, or moving the radio dial around. Is that something people still do these days? So the biggest thing and the most important thing when it comes to scrying is that you need to keep trying. If you're not getting any success, just keep trying. You could take a break. You could try tomorrow. You could try next week. But you need to keep trying. Part of the thing is that very often in the early stages, you'll get an impression and you won't really know, is that a psychic impression? Or is that just, you know, my mind kind of wandering? Is that a real thing? Or is it just imagination? And you're not going to know the answer until you experience it about 100 different times. That way you can evaluate. It's like, you know what? When it's real, it feels like this. And when it's not real, it feels like this. When it's ambiguous, it feels like this. You don't have that experience to draw from and learn from until you just get that experience to draw from and learn from. And that means that you need to do this over and over again. So every time that you experience this, every time you attempt it, no matter how well it goes, every single experience is valuable for learning scrying. Now, this is just kind of a rough guide for scrying. On each of the types of sphere that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you details on how to scry with that specific sphere. But the technique for scrying with pretty much anything that you're looking at with your eyes or your inner eye is just gaze into it or gaze at it. Let your eyes pick up whatever it is that they want to rest on, and whatever impression it is that your mind gives you, whatever thought it is that comes up whenever your eyes set on those tricks of light and those images. Those thoughts are important. Make a note of them. If you're talking to somebody else and reading their fortune, then talk to them about the impressions that you give. As you speak, you'll probably start saying stuff that's really important. This is called trancing. That's how it works. Eye movement plus symbolic and sensory impressions plus subconscious and speaking and communication. This all mixes together and produces a trance where you end up being able to interpret visions. And the visions you're getting are the literal visuals that you're getting from the crystals you're looking at. Now, this is just a guide to help you get started. So this isn't something that you have to think of as a classification that's going to go in a science book or something. But there are generally 4 types of crystal balls for at least this purpose. And this is just because I was trying to figure out how to tell you how to scry into a crystal ball, and I realized that depending on what kind of crystal ball you get, you're going to be doing very different things. So this helps divide it into the 4 types of things that you're going to be doing. First of all, there's a clear crystal ball. This is the one that you've always seen. It's the one that's in every single piece of clip art except for the one you're looking at, because that one had a white sphere in the middle, and I thought it'd be good for this presentation. The clear crystal balls, they're either made of glass, in which case they're crystal in quotations, you know, leaded crystal, that's glass. Or they're made of like quartz crystal, or they're another type of crystal that's mostly clear, such as like very translucent, very transparent rose quartz, for instance, or very transparent amethyst. You could gaze all the way through that. It would show you the image in front of you, like kind of warped upside down and stuff, and it would largely be about the thing that it's kind of blocking instead of what it itself looks like, because it's just so transparent. Now, with opaque crystal balls, and I'm sticking to like natural materials as it were, and I'm kind of putting that in quotations because, for instance, some of these materials are resins that don't really occur in this shape in nature unless humans do a lot of chemistry. But basically, these spheres are made of a substance where you just can't see through it at all. There might be a little bit of translucency on the surface, but like there's no way you can see anything behind the sphere. Typically, these are made of gemstones, and often the reason that people get these spheres is not just because of like scrying or visual purposes, but also the meaning of the gemstone and the abilities of that gemstone. So then there's a property called flash. So I just called this category flash. And flash is any kind of gemstone or other material that causes a trick of the light to occur, and it only occurs at a certain angle. So as you move the sphere, the light will play in different ways as you move it. It'll reflect in different directions. It'll act like glitter, basically. And this causes different effects whenever you're looking at it. It causes different eye movements, and so it's a different type of scrying. And here we have hybrid. Hybrid is for instance, tiger's eye has a lot of parts that are opaque as well as parts that have flash in them, depending upon the particular sample of tiger's eye that you have. And there's plenty of other gemstones and other materials that kind of have several different properties. So when it comes to hybrid, you could be using the scrying technique for clear crystal, and you could also be using the scrying technique for flash crystal. And you could use both of those techniques with the same sphere, which is pretty cool. So, clear crystal. This warps light and images, and it's a really pronounced warp that it doesn't really happen with any other materials. So this is one of the reasons why the classic crystal ball is used for all the things it's used for, is that it just has such a very interesting effect. This effect works whether it's glass or whether it's solid quartz, and honestly, most people can't tell the difference, so don't worry about which one it is. These are transparent or translucent, like I said earlier. You can see all the way through them. They warp the light in about the same way. It's just that, like, if they're translucent, they probably are tinted a certain color instead of just being completely clear. So this right here, this is actually what's called a lens ball. And the lens ball, show you the box. I'll show you it very vaguely. This is actually a photography tool instead of a new age tool. And I'm mentioning that because if you're looking for this kind of equipment, sometimes you can find it in a different place than a new age shop or a crystal shop, or a rockhound shop. Sometimes you can go find it at a photo shop. So always keep an eye out for what different industry might be producing the same materials that you're buying elsewhere. Sometimes you might end up with something that's very nice. So with this, as you notice, it takes the image behind the backdrop there. It takes the backdrop and it actually flips it over, and like it actually rotates it 180 degrees. And I just love spinning this around and seeing the stand move and the image not move. It's IRL Photoshop. So with this, you'll want to choose. You can either just put it in your hands and move it around at whatever it is that you're looking at, just kind of do it off the cuff, or you can choose something to put behind this that would be an interesting image to work with, or a meaningful image to work with. One of the things with scrying is that you don't just have to use your imagination. If you have an object that is reminiscent of the subject you're scrying on, if you have a photo of a person or a subject, if you have your computer screen, you can put this sphere in front of that, and you can look through the sphere at that thing, that object, that photo, whatever, and that will be what you're now gazing at and getting cues from and stimulus from. So the value of the clear crystal ball, the translucent crystal ball, either one, is that you can look at images and they're very clear. You can actually examine materials with this, and it's a very interesting effect to play with, even if you're doing photography. But if you're crystal gazing, then it's something else entirely. Something that's not really, I think, conveying. Maybe it'll help if I just move this around. When you're looking at it with your own eyes in front of you, this is very hard to focus on, because you can either focus on the image that's inside the sphere, or you can focus on the sphere. But since the image inside the sphere seems like it's actually in the back of the sphere, and the sphere itself, when you try to focus on it, you're focusing on the light reflecting off the front of the sphere, it causes a trick of the eye where you're not really sure whether to look in front or in back. And so you do a certain eye motion that's a little unusual, and this helps you trance out. So the warp of this is partially what is causing this effect that's allowing you to engage with this kind of trance. Now, these spheres in particular, I want to mention, are very attuned to the moon. The moon is basically, if you want a crystal ball anytime, like, not really anytime, but like I'd say 1/3 of the year, the moon is going to be in a large or full phase. Look at the moon and get the impressions that the moon is giving you, because what the moon is doing is it's reflecting light to Earth even whenever the sun is on the other side of it. So it's Earth's mirror, and a mirror is another device that you can use for scrying. In fact, you can use many of the same techniques that I'm teaching here with crystals. You can use that in mirror scrying, and you can also use it while looking at the moon. Especially when it's full or near full, you'll be able to see a lot, and you'll be getting a lot of impressions. With the moon, you've actually got a lot going for you, because it's not just about what's happening with the light physics, but also there's so many other people who are either looking at the moon or the moon is shining down on them. And there's like so much of the world the moon is shining on. There's people who are all sleeping under the moon, and so it's kind of looking into their dreams as well. So the moon can be used for a lot of very interesting scrying. And the dark moon, whenever it's, the moon is in complete darkness and there's no light showing, that can actually look into the subconscious. So all of that there, that can also be applied to this clear crystal sphere here in front of us. All of that moon related stuff, all of those places where it goes, where it reaches, this crystal sphere can do the same thing too, because they share a lot of the same properties. Basically, there's a lot of sympathetic magic going on here. In a sense, this sphere here is the moon to us, and so we'll use it as the moon, which means that you can use it as the full moon even when the full moon isn't out. Especially if you charge it in the full moon, because then it's become attuned to the full moon, and they share the same resonance. So, that's clear crystal balls. So now for opaque spheres. Now, like I said before, the opaque spheres block all light, so everything that I just talked about is completely irrelevant to opaque spheres, because you can't look at an image through them at all, period, the end. The material that the opaque sphere is made of is going to probably be what actually influences what it is that you're doing. For one, it's going to set what the appearance is, but also if you have chosen a crystal sphere because of the certain resonance or the certain ability that that crystal is supposed to have, then you're going to be engaging with that a lot as you stare into the crystal. You're going to be probably engaging with the crystal itself, and the crystal itself is probably going to be giving input and advice on what it is that you're doing. So there's going to be a pattern in the sphere. There's going to be details, and these are going to be the things that your eyes are going to be examining during your scrying. So this here, get the camera a little bit more in focus. Thanks. Focus, focus. Well, we tried. Here, move this back here. There we go. So this is a moss agate, a very green moss agate. And let me see how close I can get this to you. The lighting is a little bit questionable. That's what makes it hard. So there are a lot of details in this thing. A lot of different patterns, and what you do is basically you just look at those. I mean, I basically said that. What I really like about opaque spheres, and this tiger eye over here does sort of count as one of them. Obviously, it's one of the hybrids I was talking about. They look like little planets. If you want to have like a solar system, if you want to do any kind of astrological associations, then getting opaque spheres and getting gemstones that look like the different planets of the solar system, I mean, that's something that you can do. Like, obviously, I've got a Jupiter right there. And the moss agate, I think, is a very good Neptune. So, I find that these, because it's so important, like what they look like, each one of them is different, and you're resonating with a certain crystal. I find that these you kind of bond with over time, and you gain a resonance with them. The more that you work with them, the more that you use them. So again, like, if you keep trying, if you just keep going and keep working on it, you'll gain more skills and more abilities in your scrying. It's really, really important. Every single experience is important, especially with these, because they kind of... The idea is that the crystal itself has a memory, and so it also is having an experience with you. You're having an experience together. So that is solid rock. Now we have Flash. Now I know that Flash was discontinued, but it's still around. Trick of the Light. Like I said before, Flash is a kind of trick of the light that is sort of tricking the eye into moving differently, or into thinking that something different is happening than is actually happening. There are a lot of different types of crystals and a lot of different types of materials that can cause flash. My favorite one is probably goldstone, and blue goldstone especially. I like the tone of it. Tiger eye is probably the most common one, and of course there's labradorite, is very, very highly known for its flash. Opal as well. Opal, I think, is the most well known for flash. Now, if your eyes make certain movements and certain motions, especially whenever trying to focus, it can cause you to go into different states of mind, and it can cause you to have different types of thought. It can basically send you into a hypnotic trance if you use it correctly. So whenever you have a crystal that has flash in it, you're going to want to practice that and see what the different tricks of the light cause you to do, like psychologically, how it causes your head to react. This is one of the reasons why you want to prepare for trance and make sure that you've got a safe space to explore this in ahead of time. Because if you accidentally end up in a hypnotic trance for a while, you don't want somebody standing around and like telling you to quack like a duck or something when you wake up. It's just not great. So, you want to play with these effects and really experiment a lot and see what works for you, because this is different people. Different people respond to different things when it comes to flash. Everybody has a different eye prescription. If you're wearing glasses versus whether you're wearing contacts, your reaction to this type of scrying may be different. And in fact, if you have difficulty focusing on your eyes, if you get headaches from changes in eye focus or difficulty with eye focus, then you might want to be careful with this technique and focus on the other techniques if you've been having difficulty with headaches recently. Now, this one is very responsive to lighting changes, and this is where I just want to actually show you instead of telling. So check this out. Look at that glitter. Look at that. Sorry, my hand's in the way. But look at that glitter. That is how responsive this one is to the light. So, like I said, I really like blue goldstone. Well, here's a big old blue goldstone. Blue goldstone is actually one of those stones that's not quite a stone. It's actually a resin. It's found in resin form, and then it's recast into this form. This is blue goldstone. There's also red goldstone, green goldstone. I have yet to find a sample of green goldstone that's larger than like a little chip. I've never found a green goldstone sphere. I don't know if they've ever managed to find it in large enough samples to make into a sphere. Blue goldstone, not too hard to find. Anyway, I really like this type of sphere, but you really have to be careful because these flashy types of spheres, there's a lot of sellers putting out cheap material trying to get people who are attracted to it. There's like a lot of chemical finishes. There's a lot of products that are being kind of dressed up with industrial processes to look better, and they're kind of ending up in this category. So just sort of be wary as a buyer. Stick with reputable dealers, and try to buy in person when it comes to this category, unless it's a case where one sample is just as good as another. For instance, this blue goldstone, I got it off of Riku.com because it doesn't really matter where I get something like that. Every blue goldstone sphere is going to be a tiny bit different, but the pattern doesn't really change any. It's just a bunch of glitter. Whereas labradorite would be totally different across each sample, and you'd really want to look at the individual sample, and you'd probably want to lay eyes on it in person. So maybe go for a rock show if you're going to acquire one of these. Now, any kind of specific scrying you're doing with this sphere in specific, I would use this sphere for space. I mean, obviously. Anything that's space attuned, void aligned, stars aligned would be great here. If you do constellation work, it'd be very easy to start, like, looking for the constellation amongst all the points of light in this sphere. You can do reflection work if you've got like very cool lighting, like some kind of laser splitter or beam splitter, or you've got a fire going or something like that. Then this would be really fun to take out and see how it responds to the lighting. Now, I will say that if you don't have good lighting, these really don't do much for you. So the opposite holds true as well. They're great in the light, and if you don't have any light, they're not great. That's just how it is. So, hybrid. Like I said before, the Tiger Eye is a really good example of this. So with these, you get a combination of effects. and which kind you get will determine what combination it is. I mentioned labradorite earlier. Since it's got some solid parts of it, it's actually kind of a hybrid depending on the sample you get. Most labradorite is a bit more flash based, but some of it isn't. And then tiger eye, depending on the sample you get, some of it may actually be more solid than flash, but most tiger's eye is a hybrid. This means that you could have the eye shifting effect of a flash type of rock, but also be able to track a pattern at the same time. Or you could get like something that's half transparent, half flash, like it's got kind of both going on. You could have maybe there's some quartz that could do that, I think. You could basically have two kinds of eye warping effects. You could also work with images at the same time as using a flash effect. So you could put that on top of an image, or shine it in front of something else, look through it, and focus on that thing at the same time as the flash is affecting your eye focus. You would probably get a very interesting trance effect from that. Like I said, several things at once. So the thing is, because you get to do those several types of trance at once, this is a little bit more flexible than one that can only do one thing. If you're trying to figure out what's your first crystal ball going to be, I'd say look for something cheap. To be honest, it's very easy to get a very small quartz sphere or glass see-through sphere, but it's also quite easy to get quite a lot of other models. So I think tiger's eye is a really good first choice because it's got a lot of interesting materials in it, especially if you can get a little bit of iron in there. Usually tiger's eye has some iron as part of the substrate it's on, and that is reflective and metallic and gives another effect that you could be kind of gazing into. And one of the really interesting things is because you're in this trance state where you're very open to influences, the crystal itself might guide you to look at the solid patterns, and at different times guide you to look at the refracting flash. So the crystal now has options of different things that it can work with to show you stuff. That's pretty cool. So I showed you this before, the tiger's eye. It's been on screen for a while. See if we can get good lighting here so you can really get a close-up of it. With these, you just need to move it around. You need that with like a lot of them, but these especially, you're going to have to be getting different shots of all those different parts of it. This is where you start really discovering things about this sample and what attracted you to this, and what it can tell you. Like I said before, just keep trying. There's not really any wrong way to go about this. And like I said before, it's very low risk. It's not like you're gonna set something on fire. So a few final tips to help you get started. With these things, instead of getting the right brand of something, or it's really more about, if you're in the shop or even if you're on a site, you're gonna look around and then one of them is gonna catch you, and you're gonna feel like that's the one that I want. That's the one that I want to work with. That intuition of hey, that's it. That's the thing that I need. That's really what you want to be listening to when it comes to selecting a crystal ball, because there's really nothing else that anyone can tell you about how to pick something other than to give you advice on what makes for a quality rock sample if you're, for instance, getting a rock one. When it comes to the glass, just if you're getting transparent glass, and I want to go ahead and bring the one that I had back on camera while I'm talking about this. Pardon Pardon me. So this piece here has no bubbles in it. And the biggest problem with glass crystal balls is that if they're cheap, they'll have bubbles in them. And it's very distracting when you're trying to look through it at the image behind it, and instead you just focus on the bubbles, especially because they stay still inside the thing. It's kind of weird. I don't mind having bubbles in a piece if there's something else that's valuable to it, but for a piece of just clear glass, you really want it to just be solid glass without having any bubbles in it. So that's where cost is going to usually weigh in. This one was $50, I believe, and it might have even been cheaper than that. It's called a lens ball. Look it up. But like, it was specifically made to not have bubbles in it. So look for quality materials whenever you're looking for stuff, and do some research on how to find quality, on what defines quality. Follow some Reddit threads. Ask people at the shops. They will usually have a lot to say. If it's a good shop, they'll have a lot of advice to give you on what's a good rock, what's a good sphere. You want to let the crystal tell you. You don't want to let your brain tell you. So if you get an impression of a memory, of a sense or something, whenever you examine that impression, try to examine it through the crystal. Try to ask the crystal, hey, what was that? Hey, what do you think that impression meant? Hey, can you show me some more of that? I'm interested in more of this particular type of scene that you just showed me. Can you just continue with that? The crystal is the tool that you're using for this, so you need to focus on the crystal. This helps you not focus so much on your thoughts that you start grilling your own subconscious, because that makes it so uncomfortable that it shuts up. A lot of the point of trance is to make you distracted enough from yourself that your subconscious can do stuff. And sometimes it's making you distracted enough from your conscious self that you can actually listen to your subconscious telling you things. Your subconscious is going to be the part of yourself that tells you what the rock is telling you. Your subconscious is basically the universe's interpreter, just for you. The problem is that there's so much else going on that we're usually paying attention to with our conscious senses that it's hard to hear the subconscious over all that noise. So the crystal is going to help you talk to your subconscious. Your subconscious is going to help you talk to the crystal. It's a great big conversation in a circle of life. Now, asking questions. If you've ever read tarot or done any other type of divination, you probably already have a good idea of how to ask questions in divination, but this is always worth talking about. Yes or no questions are not as useful as questions that can give you more information. So instead of asking things like, well, did he cancel the event because he couldn't make it? Or was there some other reason? It's kind of hard to answer that depending on what the tool is. You're asking an either or question, but one is a very specific option and the other is all other options. So instead of asking in that way, you could just ask, why did he cancel the event? And that will actually show you something instead of having to explain something to you. Especially with a crystal ball, this is a very visual type of divination, and what it's really trying to give you is visual impressions that show you a scene, that give you a memory that you don't have access to because it's not from your own head, because you weren't there, or that give you access to a memory that you have trouble accessing now. Just, they help you see through the veil into things that you wouldn't normally see. So ask to be shown things instead of asking to be explained things. Tarot cards and Lenormand are pretty good at explaining things, I find. But this is about show, not tell. Another thing I want to mention, a lot of people communicate with their materials as if they are alive. For instance, they talk to their deck as if it's a real person, and they also give it like a cozy place to stay, and they act like if they didn't treat it right, then it will get mad at them. And this may be useful for you. If you find this useful, then do it. If you don't find it useful, then don't do it. You can give your crystal ball a name. You can give it a house. You can give it clothes if you want. But all of this is necessary if you find it necessary. It's helpful if you find it helpful. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. All of your traditions are yours to invent. You won't insult anyone with whatever it is you do with your crystal ball, except maybe yourself. So do whatever you want. It's fine. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. You are awesome. I hope you have a great experience with your crystal gazing. I hope you see very clear visions and you get lots of impressions about the questions that you're asking. Really hope that you connect well with your crystal ball. Just please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.